Jason Chandler was just chilling on the couch, staring at his phone when his wife Karen, who he's been married to for almost 10 years, called with some scary news. Turns out, a private investigator had busted Karen for lying, even though she tried to deny it. She and her partner were apparently headed to Honolulu. Jason couldn't believe he had been so blind after spending a whole decade with her, only to have it all ruined by her lies. He leaned back and chugged his coffee, thinking back on their past. They actually met in college 13 years ago while they were both studying business. Their love story started there and blossomed into something special. After they got hitched right after college, Jason started working at his dad's tire shop. He was a total boss at whatever he did, eventually working his way up to head of the accounting department. He was aiming to take over the business from his old man and replace Mike Allen as the CFO. Karen kept her job as a real estate agent after they tied the knot, and she killed it even when the market was tough. They were living the good life in a fancy house with some new wheels. It looked like they were solid in their marriage, even though they didn't have any kids. Jason saw it as a blessing. Karen talked about her worries about having kids and decided to get her tubes tied instead of adopting, even though it was an option. Her spending more time out with friends and coming home late has made him suspicious lately, but she brushed off his concerns and blamed her late nights on work stress. "Why were you out so late?" he asked one night when she came home looking disheveled and smelling like cigarettes. She defensively replied, "I was just hanging out and having a few drinks, Jason. It's none of your business. I can take care of myself." I was totally caught off guard by her attitude. It was not like her usual self. She seemed to calm down when I reacted. "I'm sorry, Jason," she said. "It's just work stress getting to me." "Have you ever had to deal with market pressures?" I asked her what had changed, and she said that it's harder than ever out there. The competition is tough and the pressures are relentless. "I understand, but don't take it out on me," I reassured her. "I'm on your team." She hugged me, showing regret. "You're right, sweetie. I'm sorry." "Sorry," I said. "Yes, but can you please freshen up? He asked me to tell you that you smell like smoke." "Sorry, it was really smoky at the club," she admitted. She went to take a shower and then joined him in bed after he had already fallen asleep. Their closeness dwindled over time, going from multiple times a week to only once every 2 weeks. She lost interest in his life and he started noticing her obvious lies. He didn't confront her when she claimed to be at work when she wasn't, fearing her explosive reaction. He wondered how many more lies she had been telling. She could have been lying. He looked at her while lying awake beside her. His worry was obvious. "What's on your mind, Jason?" she asked. "I'm concerned," he admitted. "What's this about?" she probed. "Us," he confessed. "It feels like we're growing apart. Do you still love me?" "Of course, honey," she reassured him by hugging him. "Do you know that?" "Honestly, I don't know," he confessed. "It's been a while since you've mentioned it. Our intimacy has decreased. You spend more time outside than inside our home." "I'm sorry," she apologized. "Work has been. Damn, I'm head over heels for you, trust me." "Can you show me more?" he asked. "Of course, babe," she said, kissing him. They got it on that night. Jason's worries eased for a bit, but his fears lingered. A month went by and the same thing happened. Jason started to think there was more to it. One day, his buddy Ron asked to meet urgently. "Sure, let's grab a beer," Jason agreed. "I can explain over the phone," Ron insisted. They met at a bar, and Ron dropped a bombshell. "I saw your wife today," Ron spilled. "Yeah, she works in real estate, showing houses." Jason shrugged and said, "I'm pretty sure Ron said that, but I had Northwest idea real estate required being so close." "Seriously," Jason exclaimed, "you must be joking." "I wish I was." Ron sighed. "I saw Karen with another man, holding hands and kissing. It wasn't innocent at all." "That can't be right," Jason protested. "Are you absolutely sure it was Karen?" Ron showed him a photo that confirmed his suspicions. "Damn," Jason muttered, asking for a copy of the photo. "Sure thing," Ron agreed, and sent it over. "What's your plan?" Jason admitted, "I'm clueless. This really surprises me, my friends. API Ron hit me up asking if you want me to hook you up, should I?" Jason hit me up saying he needs answers. After parting ways, Jason found Karen at home. "You came back early?" he asked, surprised. "Just in time," she smiled. "Where were you?" "Having a drink with Ron," he explained. "Is everything okay with your friend?" "Not really," Jason confessed. "His wife has been cheating on him." Karen pretended to be innocent. "Yeah," Jason replied. "It's a nightmare. I'm glad we don't have that." Karen's reaction didn't go unnoticed by Jason. "It would crush me if you..." "He totally screwed me over," he said, noticing her slight reaction. "I would never do that to you," she reassured him as she hugged him. "I love you too much." "I'm happy to hear that," he responded by kissing her. "Why are you home early?" "Our company's convention starts this weekend," she explained. "I wanted to pack early and spend time with you before we go our separate ways." "Where is it being held?" he asked. "Las Vegas at the Westgate Resort Hotel," she replied. "We're leaving Friday after lunch." "Is there another award this year?" he asked, remembering her past successes. "I suppose so," she replied. So they kissed again and he was like, "Let's go to Vegas for our anniversary." But she was like, "Nah, I've got work stuff." He was bummed but agreed to celebrate later. The next day, he asked Ron for a pie recommendation before lunch. When he met with the investigator, the guy was like, "Good morning, Mr. Chandler." He welcomed him into his messy office and Ron was like, "Call me Jerry." Then Jason told him about Karen's Vegas trip and Jerry was like, Vegas, huh? You think she's up to something there?" Jason was like, "Could be. I know some people there who owe me favors." Jerry suggested that we keep an eye on her and can set up surveillance if you give me the room number. "It will cost extra, are you cool with that?" Jason nodded. "But I need the truth." Jerry handed him the digital audio recorder. "It's easy to use, just slip it under her car seat. It's voice activated, so you can retrieve it later." "She usually parks at the airport," Jason observed. "Perfect," Jerry nodded. "We'll take care of it. If she slips up, we'll know about it. Here's my private line for updates, thanks." Jason replied, taking the recorder. So Jason was like, "I'm writing a check from my own account, not the joint one we have." They both kept separate bank accounts and agreed to each contribute up to 10% of their earnings. Jason usually blows his money on clothes and gifts for Karen, but lately he's been saving up for a cruise. Meanwhile, Karen was busy packing for her trip. Jason offered to help after seeing her huge pile of luggage. He got curious and peeked inside, only to find birth control pills, even though she had told him she was on the pill. Sneaky guy even took a photo of it. Jason noticed Karen's belongings at the club, wearing revealing bikinis, even an open micro bikini. He had never seen her like this before. He discreetly placed an audio recorder in her car and made sure it was on before locking up. This might be the last time they were close as husband and wife. Karen gave me her hotel room number the next morning and promised to call me every night. "Love you," she said while kissing him. He replied, "I love you too," as he watched her drive away. He informed. "Jerry from Karen's room gave me the room number, thanks." Jerry acknowledged and got his team ready. Later, Karen called from the airport to give him an update. "Check in, love you," she reiterated. "I love you too, baby," he echoed internally, hiding his doubts. When his father approached, sensing his distress, Jason confided in him. "That's rough, son," his father sympathized. "I'd never have guessed." "Same here, Dad," Jason agreed. "We are available if you need us," his father offered. "Thank you, Dad," Jason appreciated. Leaving work early, he found Karen's car. "So I was at the airport picking up the audio recorder, even though I had some doubts about tidy car. On the way back home, Karen called me and said, 'Hey, just got here.' I thanked her for letting me know, and she said she was just settling in. She told me she'd call me tonight and said she loved me. I replied, 'I love you too.' When I got home, I turned on the audio recorder, hoping not to hear anything incriminating. Most of it was just road noise and her radio playing. But then, reality hit me when I heard her conversation through Bluetooth. A man's voice greeted her with, 'Hey baby,' and she responded with, 'Hello stallion.' Flirting with that hunk. Jason rolled his eyes in his head. Who's this idiot? Last week was awesome, he thought. Glad you had fun, she giggled. Got plans for next week already, he asked. Did you tell your husband? Not yet, she confessed. I've got it under control, he said. Does he suspect anything, he asked. Nah, he's clueless, she reassured. Hope you're right, he said. He'll believe anything, she bragged. Okay, he reluctantly agreed, pulling up to the airport. See you at the hotel tonight, she announced. Okay, can't wait, he replied. See you later, love. Bye-bye, she said before hanging up. Jason was stunned as he listened to the recording on the tape recorder. He played it again to make sure he heard correctly. Not only was she cheating on him, but she also had plans for their anniversary week that didn't include him. Frustrated, he cursed to himself and wondered how long her affair had been going on and who she was seeing. He grabbed a beer and sat at his desk, thinking about recent events. Had he missed any obvious signs? What else could she be hiding from him? He had always respected her privacy. Now he just had to snoop around. He knew exactly where she hid the key, so he grabbed it from their jewelry box and made his way to her office in the spare bedroom. Driven by the feeling of betrayal, he opened the desk and started digging through her stuff. What he found was a tangled web of lies. Turns out Karen had been deceiving him for years. Shockingly, her personal account had over $250, way more than they had agreed on for savings. He looked through her expenses and found out she had been splurging on fancy gifts, like a pricey men's Rolex watch, probably for her secret lover. Her purchases also showed that she had been spending a lot on expensive stuff. Man, he was thinking about all the clothes she bought and trips to Planned Parenthood for abortions that she paid for in cash. He was wondering about the fathers of the babies she got rid of and how she always used birth control. And then he found a receipt for Plan B pills she bought not too long ago. And to top it off, he found a receipt for a big down payment on an apartment in a fancy neighborhood. He was wondering if it was gonna be her love nest or a way to leave him. And he also found receipts for paying bills and buying new furniture. Crazy stuff. Making him think about whether one of the keys he found was for her new place, he decided to dig deeper. He turned on her computer and found passwords conveniently written under the keyboard. He got into her email and was surprised to see her login credentials saved, showing she was pretty confident in her secrecy. Shockingly, he discovered messages with Greg Wilson detailing their sexual encounters dating back almost a year, when he first noticed her behavior changing. They started meeting in hotel rooms and later rented houses together. Hey, remember that email I sold you from 6 months ago that gave you some answers? Did you deal with that problem? Greg asked. Yep, Karen replied. I went and got rid of it today. Shame you didn't keep the baby, Greg said. You could have said it was Jason's. I can't do that, she explained. He thinks I can't have kids. He'd figure out it wasn't his. Looking back on 6 months ago, Jason realized that was when he first caught her lying. Damn, he thought to himself. She's a sneaky, cheating woman. As Greg was going through their emails, he suggested having sex in Karen's bed, but she said no way. I won't cheat on Jason like that, she wrote back. That idiot doesn't know anything, Greg replied. I'm not doing it, she insisted. What if you had your own place? Greg suggested. You could afford it with your own money, and your husband wouldn't suspect a thing. Maybe you're right, she replied. I have my own bank account, and Jason never questions it. I'll start looking. That was 3 months ago. The receipt for the down payment was just over a month old. So I got a condo, she told Greg. I put down a deposit and I'm gonna buy furniture next week. Jason was clueless, but Greg's response was perfect. Well, have fun in that place, he said. Jason was shocked by the news and kept reading the emails. Why stick with your husband? Greg asked. Why not leave and get your own place? Believe it or not, I care about him, Karen replied. He may be a cocky accountant at a tire store chain, but I have feelings for him and he treats me right. I got the condo so we could meet without risking exposure at hotels. Plus, you're... Hey, are you still married? Just let me know and I'll break up with Christy, Greg offered. Let's see after the conference, Karen replied. What happens after the conference? Greg wondered. Jason started printing Karen's letters and copying the receipts he found. As he did this, Karen's number appeared on the screen. "Hello," he answered cautiously. "It's me, baby." Karen was greeted. "Are you okay? Why are you raising your voice?" "I've got a pounding headache," he lied to avoid giving himself away. She explained that she was just getting ready to call it a night, gonna take something for this headache and just crash. "Miss you and love you," she said. "Yeah, same here," he mumbled before hanging up. As he ended the call, he couldn't help but wonder if she noticed how unenthusiastic he sounded. In reality, he was pissed off and dead set on finding out the truth about Greg. He started digging around Karen's workplace website and finally found out that Greg Wilson was the regional manager. Turns out she was actually working with her boss to print some documents. Adding this to his growing pile of evidence, he was getting more and more irritated. He even considered breaking into her apartment to snoop around. He stopped at her address, thinking about the security system as he looked through her files. He found a code for the alarm system, of course she would write it down, he thought. Crewy as he closed her laptop, he grabbed latex gloves from the garage to avoid leaving fingerprints. He found her car parked outside and went to her door. He put on his gloves and tried a key from her jewelry box. The door opened and he went inside. When he saw the alarm remote, he entered the code he found and made sure it worked. The alarm was off. He turned on the light and checked out the apartment, liking Karen's choice of furniture. She always had good taste, he thought. It's a shame her loyalty doesn't match her decorating style. As he expected, there were no pictures of him. This was her love hideaway, her escape from their marriage. He walked into the kitchen and saw some plates and utensils. The fridge was empty and the pantry was practically bare. Surprisingly, the house was fully furnished with floral paintings and had a huge flat-screen TV. So I walk into the bedroom and see this big-ass TV on the wall. But then I notice there's also these fancy lace curtains hanging over the windows, and right above the damn electric heater. That's a fire waiting to happen, man. So I start snooping around and find some weird-ass underwear in the drawers. I'm thinking, damn, is Greg hooking up with other dudes in here? So I whip out my phone and snap some pics. Then I find a card from Greg in the nightstand drawer, thanking me for the watch and saying he can't wait for my housewarming. I'm fuming, man. I'm about to call Greg out on his BS and his whole collection of dude clothes. So, I walked into the bathroom and noticed there were toothbrushes for both him and her, along with their towels by the shower. I snapped a few more pics on my phone. In the second bedroom, there was just a desk and a chair. There was a network cable on the desk, probably for her laptop. I made sure to capture her name and address on the letters from the utility companies. The windows were covered with lace curtains, just like in the bedroom. So this dude found some sketchy stuff with the electric heater, like no smoke alarms in the bedrooms and a janky old one in the kitchen. He was even questioning if it had a battery in it. So, to make sure everything was cool, he turned off the lights, set the security system, and bounced after making sure the door was locked. As he walked back to his car, he was thinking about his next move. Divorce was definitely on the table. He just couldn't trust her again, even if she broke it off with her side piece and gave up the apartment. He knew dudes often mess up in these situations. In situations like these, he figured her getting a higher salary would mean he wouldn't have to fork over alimony. So he thought it would be smart to talk to a lawyer before making any moves. He also hoped that since she owned the flat on her own, he wouldn't have to give up their home or share the money from selling it. He felt deserted because she bought the apartment without telling him, and they didn't have any kids together. Custody and support weren't an issue, but he wanted some payback for feeling betrayed. He wasn't about to resort to violence though, he didn't want to end up in jail. When he got back home, he checked the phone book and found an ad for Gregory Wilson. He thought it might be the same Greg Wilson, so he called the number. A lady picked up and he asked if she was Mrs. Wilson. She said yes, and he told her he was Jason Chandler. She confirmed that her husband is the regional manager for Acme Real Estate. But she said he's away at a conference this weekend and will be visiting more offices next week. She told him he'd have to call the regional office. Hey, can you call the office and leave a message for him? Actually, Mrs. Wilson, I'd like to talk to you, Jason redirected. She responded, Yes, ma'am. Jason continued, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but my wife is cheating on me with your husband. Are you sure? She inquired. Absolutely, Jason asserted. And I can prove it. Do you have any solid evidence? She pressed. I can even show you where they meet up if you want, Jason offered. He heard her sigh over the phone. Will tomorrow work for you? She asked. Sure, Jason agreed. What time is best for you? Around 1 p.m., she told him where Karen's apartment was and how to get there. Jason finished the call by saying, I'll see you then. He then went to his desk with a smile and started making a list of things to do. The first thing on the list was to change the door locks and make sure it was done before meeting Greg's wife at Karen's place. He thought about drowning his sorrows in alcohol, but decided to have a cold slice of pizza instead. Satisfied with his decision, he climbed the stairs. And then he hit the hay early. The next day, he hit up the hardware store to grab some stuff to fix the locks and make a spare key for the apartment. By noon, he had swapped out all the locks. After a quick shower, he grabbed his tape recorder and printed out some emails from Karen's account. Then he headed over to her place to meet Greg's wifey. When he saw Karen's ride, he walked up to a Toyota Corolla nearby where he saw a fine dark-haired lady knocking on the window. He asked, Are you Christy Wilson? She confirmed her identity and he unlocked the door for her. Yo, call me Jason Chandler, he said, motioning for her to put on some latex gloves. Let's go in, I'll show you their hideaway with the spare key. He managed to unlock the door and turn off the security alarm. As they walked in, Jason led her to the bedroom and started opening drawers, revealing Greg's clothes in the closet. Oh my God, she exclaimed. I've been looking for these for weeks. I wondered where his clothes were disappearing to. Has your husband been wearing a Rolex watch recently? Jason asked. She confirmed, mentioning that. So, management gave it to him and he's just shaking his head. Jason grabbed a card from Karen's nightstand and showed it to her. When she read the note, she started crying. Is this his handwriting? Jason asked. Yes, she sobbed. But wait, there's more, he said, showing her the emails and playing the audio recording from Friday. She read the emails with tears streaming down her face before listening to the recording. I'm sorry, Jason said, hugging her and trying to keep it together. It's not your fault, she reassured him. I had a feeling something was off, but didn't have proof, she told him. She pulled herself together and asked, So what's the plan? He said, I'm filing for divorce. She replied, I'll kick him out as soon as I see him. Suddenly, she had a bright idea and exclaimed, What if we help them move in together? Jason thought for a moment before smiling and saying, I'm down with that. But we gotta move fast, they'll be back soon. Greg mentioned he'll be gone for a week after the convention, she revealed. Karen will probably find a reason to leave too. Jason cursed as he realized the situation. He remembered the conversation we recorded. Damn, you're right, he admitted. But I want her stuff out of my place. Fronto agreed, she agreed. Meet me back here in 3 hours. Sounds good, Jason agreed. I'll be back, or something. I should be back on time. See you then, she said. Rising, Jason looked at her, impressed by her small size and charm. He couldn't understand why Greg would cheat on her. They left the condo and came back 3 hours later, their cars packed with the couple's stuff. They dumped the bags in. In the sparely decorated spare room, they didn't care about things breaking because they knew the sneaky cheaters would be rifling through everything for hours. I don't know about you, but I wasn't exactly gentle with his stuff, she said. Jason laughed, saying, Same here. They high-fived. Looking at her, he said, I don't know about you, but I'm starving. I agree, she said. I could really go for a big, juicy hamburger. A super cheesy one. That sounds perfect, he replied. I know just the spot. Let's go. Come with me for my treat, follow me, she said. She followed him after he parked and they went to the bar he always goes to with Ron. Christy looked at the building skeptically and questioned the bar. Trust me, he reassured her. They have the best burgers here, you'll love it. Okay, she agreed, but I hope you're not planning to get me drunk and take advantage of me. He laughed and reassured her, as tempting as it sounds, I wouldn't do that. Darn, she joked, laughing. They ordered beers, burgers, and fries and spent the meal swapping stories. Their marriages didn't work out, their stories were similar. They met in college, got married quickly, but wanted different things when it came to having kids. He asked if she was an accountant, she said no but hoped to become one someday. Jason talked about his job and suggested they could help each other out if she sent him her resume. She agreed, taking a bite of her burger. His phone rang, showing Karen was calling. He answered in a bored tone. Hey, Karen said hi all drunk, she was like, hey baby, what you doing? He replied, just grabbing a burger at the bar, how about you? Then she goes, guess what? I won the Best Salesman award. He was like, congrats, but he knew it was all BS. She kept on with her lies, saying they want her to stay in Vegas for a week to work with their reps. He pretended to be excited, saying, that's great news. But he already knew it was a scam. Hey, our 10-year anniversary is this Wednesday, he reminded her. I get it and I'm sorry, she apologized. Maybe we can celebrate next weekend, he suggested. He told me not to worry about it. I know how important your work is and I don't want you to miss out on a big opportunity, she asked, what does that mean? Oh, nothing, he brushed it off. Just that our 10-year anniversary only happens once, but I know your job is important to you. Don't stress about it. Yeah, work is important, but I thought you would be happy for me. She breathed out, I'm leaving, but he was like, go work with your colleagues. I'll be fine. Love you, and she was like, okay. He replied, I agree. Bye, and then he hung up and turned to Christy. That's it, he told her. She shook her head in sympathy. Did she really choose Greg over our anniversary, she asked, putting a comforting hand on his. He held back tears. A guy he barely knew was more concerned than his own wife. What a letdown, he said. I'm sorry, she said. Thanks, he managed to smile. He took Jerry's card and called him privately. Hey Jerry, so I called the old dude and he was like, hello, Jason Chandler here. He mentioned he just talked to Karen and she claims she's gonna be in Vegas for another week. But you know me, I ain't buying it, Jerry asked skeptically. I don't believe it for a second, Jason confirmed. I was just working on your report, but I'll have my guys keep an eye on them and see what's really going on. Jerry replied, all right, we can move forward then. The conference wrapped up a few hours ago and it seemed like they were having a good time. Most of the attendees will be heading out tomorrow. And by the way, your wife and her partner spent the night together yesterday. Just thought you should know. Hey, there's a movie you might like, I'll email it to you along with my report. That would be awesome, Jerry. Jason said, thanking him before hanging up the phone. He then turned to Christy and said, we'll figure this out tomorrow. My guy caught the two lovebirds spending the night together, and he's sending us some video footage. Want to watch it with me? Not really, she admitted, but I think I should. Understandingly, he nodded. All right, let's head to my place, he suggested, getting up after paying the bill. So, they went back to his place after hanging out at the bar. Once he got settled into his office, a video showed up in his inbox. Want a drink before we get started, he asked. Sure, she said, taking a cola. I'll grab us some Cokes, he said, heading to the kitchen. He came back with the drinks and put on the DVD. They watched Karen and Greg getting it on, while Christy and Jason tried to keep their cool as they watched their partners having a good time. And then came the awkward pillow talk. Man, that was rough. What do you reckon our wives are doing now? Karen asked. I bet Chris is watching one of her cheesy chick flicks, Greg replied. Or buried in one of her dumb books, Karen added. Yeah, I know what you mean. I bet Jason is glued to another one of his boring spreadsheets or going through stock data, Greg chuckled. Do you really think he's out here trying to save the world or something? I mean, seriously, his dad's company sells tires. What's the big deal? So, what's up? You gonna tell that dumbass after tomorrow's fancy dinner, right? Yeah, she's confirmed. I'll just tell him I got asked to stick around in Vegas for a week covering for the local guys. He'll totally fall for it, he'll believe anything I tell him. I could say the moon is made of green cheese and he'd buy it. By the time he figures it out, we'll be chilling on a beach in Hawaii, Greg added. I can't wait to see you rocking that new sling bikini, Christy erupted. Hawaii, she exclaimed. That idiot is whisking me off to Hawaii. I'm in. She was so mad she turned to Jason and said, sorry for calling your wife a bitch. Jason replied, no need to apologize, I would have said the same thing. They went back to watching the video. What about your anniversary, are you gonna skip it, she asked. Hawaii sounds way better than a night at the steakhouse, she added. I promised to make it up to him, maybe I will, maybe I won't, she said. Greg gave her a cold look and said, you know. She shrugged and said, it's just our 10th anniversary, there will be more. Who cares about that right now, I need. So, after you said those things, they started up again. Jason stopped the video and was all like, I've seen enough, you know. Then Christy just nodded, tears flowing down her face like crazy. She was like, yeah, I've had more than enough. And then she dropped the bombshell that she's meeting with a divorce lawyer on Monday. Jason was like, wanna come with me, and she asked all quietly, do you mind? He was all, no, of course not. And then Christy just couldn't hold it in anymore, she burst into tears and Jason put his arm around her, offering some comfort. He was holding back his own tears, trying to be there for her despite his own stuff going on. Hey, do you mind if I crash here tonight, she asked. No funny business, just want a cuddle, she clarified. Of course, you can stay as long as you want, he replied. Thanks, she said. I can't believe I wasted so many years on that idiot, believing his lies. I totally understand, Jason empathized. He took her upstairs to the main bedroom and found an old t-shirt that looked long enough for her to sleep in. She took it and went to the bathroom to change while she waited. When she came back, he put on his pajamas and climbed into bed. She came out of the bathroom wearing a long t-shirt, and he was impressed by how she looked. He's always loved Karen's legs, but Krist's were the slimmest he'd ever seen. She smiled as she got under the covers and asked, what's wrong? I've never seen legs as beautiful as yours, Jason complimented. Sweet talk will get you anywhere, sir, she teased. He wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close and breathing in her scent. She placed her hand on his chest. Once they cuddled up to each other, he admitted, did you know you're the only woman I've slept with besides my wife for more than 10 years? She responded, you're the only man I've ever been intimate with, other than my spouse. They gazed into each other's eyes for what felt like forever before falling asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, they woke up tangled together. Good morning, sleepyhead, she said. You don't have to leave in a hurry on my account, she added as he got up to use the restroom. Good morning, gorgeous, he replied. I said I'll be quick, and then he rushed to the bathroom to relieve himself. It was a bit challenging though, as he was pretty excited and nervous. When he came back, Christ was already tidying up the kitchen and cooking scrambled eggs and bacon for breakfast. He looked at the clock and saw it was 8:30 a.m. His eyes went back to Christ, appreciating her cooking in his old t-shirt, and briefly remembering how Karen used to make breakfast for them. Wow, that smells amazing, he said. I hope you don't mind me taking over your kitchen. No way, he told her. I can't even remember the last time someone made me breakfast. Has Karen ever cooked for you? She asked. She used to, but she stopped a while ago saying it took too long and she needed to get ready for her clients. Damn, Christy whispered. Right. He agreed. The smell of bacon filled the room as she placed a big plate in front of him. He ate the food eagerly, like he hadn't eaten in weeks. Wow, that was amazing. Do you cook like this every morning? Whenever I can. She answered his call, and Jerry's name and number popped up on the screen. Hello, Jerry, he greeted. Working on Sundays. Now Jerry chuckled more than I'd prefer. He said, I wanted to give you an update. Your wife and her lover caught their flight from Las Vegas just before 6 a.m. They had a short stop in Los Angeles before taking off an hour ago. They should be landing in Honolulu in about 5 hours. I have the flight details if you need them. Jason confirmed they're on an American Airlines flight. Jerry told me he knows someone in Honolulu who will keep an eye on them once they touch down. Thanks, Jerry. Jason quickly wrote down the information after ending the call and then turned to Christy. So, here's the latest update, they're on their way to Hawaii. Karen settled into her seat as the plane started to climb. She gazed out the window, watching as they flew over the Pacific Ocean. This is it, she whispered to herself. Glancing to her left, she saw Greg already asleep in the seat next to hers. She closed her eyes for a moment, thinking back on the past decade. She felt super guilty for betraying her husband, who trusted her. She knew deep down that this was a bad decision, but she tried to convince herself otherwise. She hoped everything would work out without Jason ever finding out. Maybe they could stay married and grow old together peacefully before retiring. Her first mistake was telling Jason that she couldn't have kids, even though she could. She just didn't want a family. Motherhood might be appealing to some, but not to her. So she told Jason a lie. So, this lady had some medical issues that made her get her tubes tied. She was okay with it at first, but then had problems with an IUD that made her quit using it because it made her pelvis hurt and gave her headaches. So, she switched to the good old birth control pills and used the rhythm method to avoid getting pregnant during her most fertile times. But guess what? She still ended up getting pregnant twice. The first time was with her husband, and she was scared because she hadn't been completely honest with him about not wanting kids. She got an abortion on the down low, using her own money. Luckily, they had their own bank accounts in addition to a joint one. At first, they agreed she would put 10% of her income into the joint account, but she took advantage of the situation. She might have paid for the abortion without Jason knowing. Later on, she got pregnant again and confided in her side piece about it 6 months ago, and went for another abortion, paying for it with her own cash. I was hoping Jason wouldn't find out, but then she did it anyway. Cheating on her husband, she stayed faithful for the first few years of their marriage. But one day, everything changed when she met a client who was super hot and loaded. In a split second, she made a decision she wouldn't regret. They had steamy, passionate hookups in a fancy house he bought for her. This kind of thing didn't happen often, maybe 10 times in the next year and a half, but she found out others were doing the same thing. Even though she felt a little guilty, she thought, screw it. If other women can have fun without any consequences, why can't I? She didn't think it had anything to do with Jason. Her love for him never wavered and he wouldn't be hurt by something he didn't even know about. But then she met Greg and everything changed. He was everything her husband wasn't. Jason was all about analyzing and being precise in his decisions, while Greg was impulsive and made decisions on a whim. Jason's life, both personally and professionally, was all planned out, but Greg was more spontaneous. Greg started working at his dad's tire company and worked his way up to CFO, then eventually became president and CEO. On the other hand, he wasn't sure about his future and just lived day by day. Jason, on the other hand, was always thinking ahead. In bed, their styles were totally different. Jason focused on making her feel good, while Greg was more rough and left her feeling hurt. They used to hook up in quiet motels or places they owned, but she started worrying about getting caught. So basically, Jason or Greg's wife, Christy, found out about their little fling. After Jason started getting cold feet, she pulled back from Greg. She tried to focus on her husband for a while, but eventually gave up and Greg tried to make things right. But she was scared Jason would spill the beans about their affair, so she decided to get her own place to keep things on the down low. Even though Jason seems all proper and stuff, she still had some feelings for him. Eventually, they decided to get a divorce. Doing our own taxes made it easier for me to break up with Greg but still enjoy tax savings. It felt like a win-win, at least that's what I told myself. This led to me deciding to go to Hawaii with Greg for a week, pretending it was just a vacation with my husband after a work conference. Greg also let his wife know about his travel plans. I tricked Jason into thinking I was going to Vegas for a week, and he believed me without question, even though I felt guilty about it. Missing their 10th wedding anniversary, she promised to make it up when she got back, keeping her secret safe. She grinned as she looked at the beautiful sea below them, her mind drifting to Hawaii. Greg had bought a daring open bikini for the trip. I can't wait to see her strip down and have fun on the beach. The idea got her excited and she felt a tingle in her thighs, tempting her to give in to the desire right now, maybe a sneaky bathroom rendezvous. Later she checked her phone, half expecting a message from Jason. She wasn't shocked by his tendency for when she was on the phone or talking face to face, she had this smirk on her face. And then there was a slight shudder and the sound of the engines changed. hinting at some turbulence as the plane started to drop. The engines sounded different and a sense of dread started to creep in. She looked out the window and realized how serious the situation was. Panic started to spread through the cabin as the gravity pushed her back into her seat. She saw the ground getting closer and thought to herself, "Oh God, this is it, we're going down, I'm gonna die." Oxygen masks dropped down and passengers started screaming while flight attendants tried to keep everyone calm. Before getting all emotional, she checked her phone one last time to prepare for what was coming. Jason and Chris wrapped up breakfast, cleaned up the dishes, and then sat down to talk about their cheating partners. Jason appreciated Chris's sharp mind and felt closer to her than he had with Karen in months. As he poured himself another cup of coffee, Karen called, and he put her on speaker to hear her panicky voice. Jason yelled over the noise and chaos, "Aaron, what's happening?" He strained to hear over the commotion as the plane landed. "Sorry," she said, her voice cracking before the call was cut off. Jason and Christy exchanged shocked looks and tried to call Karen back, but it went straight to voicemail. Jason turned to Christy and convinced her to try Greg. She quickly grabbed her phone from her purse and dialed Greg's number, but it also went unanswered and redirected to voicemail. Jason left a voicemail and then went to his home office to check out more info on his computer. He found the airline's number on a search engine, gave them a call, and after being turned down at first, finally got through to someone who said they were checking into the plane crash. Jason and Chris's contact details, along with Karen and Greg's, were taken down. They said they would let them know if there were any updates, but there was nothing else online. Jason figured it would be a while before they heard anything. An hour before they heard anything, they went to the living room and turned on the TV hoping to get some updates. Jason flicked through channels, but there was no breaking news. He looked at his phone, and finally a news network reported that an American Airlines flight headed to Honolulu had crashed in the Pacific Ocean, but didn't give any details. "Oh my God," Christy exclaimed, covering her mouth. Jason held her and silently prayed for Karen's safety. Despite the strain on their marriage, Jason freaked out when he heard that his wife might be dead. An hour later, the phone rang and he turned off the TV to talk to Mr. Chandler. A lady on the other end asked if it was him, and when he confirmed, she dropped the bomb that his wife's flight had crashed. She didn't have any more details, but promised to keep him updated. Jason thanked her and hung up, then he and Christy hugged each other, tears streaming down their faces. Shortly after, Christy's phone rang with the same tragic news. Later, his old man gave him a ring. It wasn't out of the ordinary, his folks often hit him up when they got news like this. His dad said, "Hey Dad, how's it going?" Jason replied, "Just got back from church." "Have you heard about the accident in the news?" "Yeah, I saw it," his dad asked. "It's awful," Jason confirmed. "By the way, how's Karen? Wasn't she on her way back from Vegas?" "She's not good, Dad," Jason revealed. "She was on the plane that went down." "What?" his dad gasped. "What was she doing going to Hawaii without you?" "She was." So, Karen spilled the beans to her boyfriend Jason, and oh my God, his dad totally freaked out. "I feel really bummed to hear that. Jason, you better take a week off to sort things out. Let Mike know if we can help in any way, just give me a call, okay?" "Thanks, Dad." Jason was thankful. He hung up the phone with his mind going a mile a minute, feeling a mix of emotions. He was super sad to hear that Karen had definitely passed away, but he was also mad at her for betraying him and at himself for not standing up to her. It's weird, but the fact that they weren't divorced didn't really bother him. Wow, when he found out he'd have to cover Karen's funeral expenses and the rent for the flat, he was shook. Damn, he muttered under his breath, glancing over at Christy and wondering how she'd handle it all. He had an idea and decided to just come out and say it. "Christy," he started, "why don't you sell your place and come live with me?" She looked at him, tears starting to well up in her eyes. "Are you serious?" she asked. "Absolutely," he replied. "I've got a spare room upstairs, and with everything that's coming our way, maybe we can help each other get through it all." After thinking for a bit, she said, "Why not, but only if." He asked, "What's the condition?" "Is it true that I sleep in your bed?" she asked. Jason's mind was racing as he realized things were happening quicker than he thought. He pushed aside his doubts and decided to go for it. "Yes," he said, "it's been a while since I felt this comfortable with my husband. Last night was the first time in years that I felt satisfied. Is that okay? He asked. That's more than fine, she reassured him. So it's settled, she confirmed. I'll do it. Hey, can you swing by my place and pick up my stuff? I'll be back tonight. Jason agreed, I'll be here, don't worry. After she left, he called Lucy, Karen's coworker. Hey, it's Jason Chandler, he said when she answered. Oh, hi Jason, she replied. How's Hawaii treating you? I'm not sure, he admitted. I've heard it's beautiful this time of year though. Lucy's tone changed. Karen mentioned you two were going there after the company meeting. I thought you were already on your way. Jason set the record straight. Karen left, but not with me. She went with Greg. Lucy was shocked. Jason confirmed that. But neither of them made it. Their plane crashed in the Pacific Ocean today. You might have seen it on the news. Oh no, Lucy gasped. Do you know if she survived? I highly doubt any of them did, Jason replied solemnly. I'm really sorry, Lucy. Please accept my condolences. Also, the company offers life insurance to all employees. I'll take care of the paperwork, but I'll need details from the airline. Can you provide them? Yes, I'll gather them. So Jason told me something, but I gotta ask you, did you know about Karen cheating on Greg? Jason asked. I had a feeling something was up, but there were just rumors, nothing solid, Lucy admitted. We don't really gossip about personal stuff at work, she added. Got it, Jason said. That's all for now, I'll contact you later. Thanks, Lucy replied. Oh, and again, I'm sorry for your loss. Later that night, while watching TV with Christ, a news report about the crash came on. It mentioned that. So, the plane was going down and this dude on a cargo plane nearby caught the whole thing on camera. The TV showed this video of the plane nosediving and then basically breaking apart when it hit the water. The report said that the cargo ship changed direction to help find any survivors, but they only found some bodies in the water. Sadly, there were no survivors. They did manage to pull out a bunch of luggage though. So, Karen and Greg's stuff was in there, but they weren't found. After that, Jason and Christy were super busy. Christy moved in with Jason and sold her own place. Jason had to deal with Karen's apartment, but there was nothing worth keeping, so he donated it all to Goodwill. They were happy to take it. Then he sold the place and got back what Karen put into it. And both Jason and Christy got a $500,000 insurance payout from Acme Real Estate for it. After their spouses died, they wasted no time getting rid of anything that reminded them of Karen. They tossed out photos, packed away trinkets, and got rid of furniture, especially the bed. Family members took what they wanted, and the rest, including 2 cars, was either sold, donated, or junked. Jason also dealt with the hassle of closing Karen's bank account, and after months of paperwork, he got a check for around $250,000. Lawyers came to Jason and Christy looking to make money off the accident, but more digging showed. The crew messed up by not understanding the computer warnings and making the wrong calls. The plane dropped at like 12,000 feet per minute and crashed into the water at about 135 miles per hour in just over 3 minutes. Jason pictured Karen's final moments, maybe talking to him on the phone and freaking out. He thought she probably regretted something, knowing she was about to die with no way out. But Jason felt like it was too little, too late. Luckily, the airline settled with everyone affected. Families paid each passenger around $175,000 as compensation. Jason and Christy got over $1.6 million in total, even after taxes. Since they never found Karen or Greg's bodies and didn't have a funeral, Jason and Christy organized memorial services for their families. They didn't cry for their deceased spouses during the services. 3 months into their relationship, Christy quit her job to move in with Jason permanently. By then, they were madly in love. One evening, while having dinner at a local spot, Jason from Texas Roadhouse got down on one knee and asked Christy to marry him. She happily said yes, and people nearby clapped and cheered. "It's about time you made an honest woman out of me," she joked. "Why?" he asked. "Because you're gonna be a dad," she revealed, and he was overjoyed. Jason showered her with kisses and said, "I love you more than anything." She replied, "And I love you even more." Then, she made one request. "What is it?" he asked. "Please don't make me fly anywhere," she said, laughing. Jason hugged her tight and reassured her, "Don't worry, my dear." He was there for her. Thanks for listening. Now, for the second part of the story. I was completely shocked when I rang the doorbell after a wild bachelor party. He had planned revenge. Let's just say guys have fragile egos. Any little insult and they're ready to fight. My boyfriend got revenge on me because I ignored his warnings and went to a crazy bachelor party with my friends, who were also his friends. He couldn't handle the fact that they were talking bad about him behind his back, so he left the party early. Damn. Man, this story is gonna be wild. I don't even know why I'm spilling all this embarrassing stuff about my life on here. Scratch that, I do know why. I'm here to say that guys have the most fragile egos. And now I'm feeling the brunt of it all because of this dude. My name doesn't matter, neither does my ex's, so I'll skip that. I couldn't believe he did me dirty like this, all because of some gossip he didn't even bother to verify. SMH. Our friend started talking shit behind my back, making him doubt me. He ended up sabotaging my plans because of their whispers. I trusted him with all my dreams and goals, but he just tore them down. I needed his approval, but he didn't even bother checking if the rumors were true before ruining everything between us. Man, my family totally surprised me by setting me up in front of them. I trusted them and they totally screwed me over. This is why you shouldn't trust anyone. Let me tell you the whole story of how it all went down, including how my partner got back at me when I went against him and got crazy at a mutual friend's bachelor party. So, my friend was getting married and decided to have her bachelorette party at a strip club to get wild before tying the knot. So, my friend's fiancé, who happens to be friends with my boyfriend, decided to have his bachelor party at a different club. My boyfriend wasn't feeling it and wanted to chill at home, only going to the wedding. I told him I was going anyway, and he threatened me saying if I went against his wishes, I'd be locked out. I thought he was just talking big and messing around. I was already feeling good for the night, so I was ready to have a blast with my girls. Since we haven't hung out in a while because of our hectic work and school schedules, this was our only opportunity to chill and have some fun. I wasn't going to let my negative boyfriend ruin it for me, so I ignored his warning and carried on with my night. I even gave him a kiss goodbye before heading over to my girlfriend's friend's house to get ready and then go to the club. I even texted him on the way, but he didn't respond to any of my messages before I got there. The club and the party turned up when my friend who was getting married arrived. We were dancing and suddenly her husband's bachelor party merged with our party. He wouldn't let her come without him, which was sweet how they stuck together. But everyone was booing them. My boyfriend showed up and I tried to get him to dance with me, but he wouldn't budge. So I hit the dance floor solo. My friend, let's call him Frank, was there too, even though that's not his real name. Yo, so this dude started spreading rumors about me and Frank, all because my insecure ex believed them without even talking to me first. My friends were also in on it, egging him on because they thought me and Frank would end up together. They were taunting my ex about it, and he just gave up like a coward. Actually, scratch that, like the sneaky and conniving coward that he was. He ended our relationship over some false stories that this dude spread about me and Frank. I even danced with Frank at the Man, I was at my bachelor party and my buddies were hyping me up, but I was so wasted that I couldn't even hear what they were saying. When I went to grab a drink and catch my breath, I realized that my partner had ditched the party. No one saw him leave, and once the booze wore off, I couldn't believe he left without me. Since no one was heading home, I had to take a taxi. I was furious that he left without me. When I got back and got out of the Uber, the driver stopped me and said my card payment didn't go through. Bro, I tried to pay for everything but my dude covered all the random expenses like Uber, Netflix, and Spotify, so I was confused why his card wasn't working. I ended up arguing with the Uber driver, but then I saw my luggage outside and realized I forgot about him. I ran to the door, rang the bell, and my boyfriend opened it with a look of disdain. He then said we were done and slammed the door in my face without any explanation. I had no idea what kind of revenge he had planned. Because of that little thing I did, I kept banging on the door hoping the noise would make him come out and explain why he said what he did. But instead, I just woke up the neighbors who started peeking out of their doors. We were in an apartment building, and my loud knocking brought unwanted attention. I was so upset about the whole situation, and then the Uber driver had to call the police on me because I didn't want to pay him. I ended up spending the night in jail, thinking it was going to be the worst thing ever. Man, I had some problems because of the Uber driver and my nosy neighbors who snitched on me for hammering. I didn't have the cash to bail myself out because my partner had cut me off from everything, including money. I tried calling him but he blocked my number, so I couldn't reach him. My friends were all too wasted to help bail me out or even transfer the money to me. I even called them but they were talking gibberish, so I had to spend the night in jail. And as for my family, I didn't want them to find out. I was in deep shit and had no idea my partner would go to such lengths. I kinda thought he was kidding and that the whole thing was just a mistake that could be fixed. So, I ended up crashing in the cell, thinking that when I got back to my boyfriend's place the next day, everything would be cool. But boy was I wrong. When I got back, my boyfriend had already moved out. It was like he had it all planned out, in just one night. Ever since forever ago, I had to backtrack and piece together what had happened to get me to this point. I grabbed my stuff that was left outside and headed to my girlfriend's place. That's when I found out that my partner had been acting weird at the party, but I was too drunk to notice. It turns out they were all over him while I was busy dancing with Frank. I was pissed off because they messed everything up for me. When I tried calling my partner, the call got redirected. Another thing, it was about time for me to finally meet my grandpa so I could get my inheritance. That was the whole point of us getting in touch. It wasn't a big deal, but we both knew it was a little something. Grandpa had some money saved for me since I was his only grandchild, but he wanted me to show proof that I was engaged before he could hand it over. If I couldn't prove I had someone special, he was gonna give it all to his gold-digging wife. I'd rather die than let him go through with that. The plan was simple. I liked my boyfriend, but I never planned on marrying him. I had told him about the idea, and he agreed. We were going to pretend to be engaged and plan our wedding like normal, at least until my grandfather released the funds. My grandfather didn't trust my dad because he wasted his money before he died, and my mom died giving birth to me. My granddad raised me on his own and he always made it clear how much he hated irresponsibility. Man, I was always taught to stick to my word and keep promises, thanks to my grandpa. But let me tell you, once I stepped out of his protective bubble and into the real world, things changed. My boyfriend and I were supposed to meet him and lie about being engaged so he'd give me access to my trust fund and I could start my fashion brand and do all sorts of things with the $30 million. Don't even get me started on my grandpa. Man, that dude had a ton of money and never shared a dime with me. It really ticked me off, so I decided to try and get my hands on it before he kicked the bucket. I couldn't stand the thought of his sneaky wife scoring it all and calling her grandma. No way was I gonna let that slide, or my folks would be turning in their graves. And then, out of nowhere, my boyfriend goes and meets my grandpa, totally blindsiding me. I was still trying to get a hold of him when it all went down. So this dude showed up at my house 3 days after we split, and then he followed my grandpa to his office. I tried to talk to him, but he didn't even acknowledge me. Turns out he was there with my grandpa's wife, introducing himself as some fancy lawyer all full of charm. He then introduced himself to my grandpa, and I was just left speechless with my mouth hanging open at the dinner table. I felt like he had just slapped me in the face with that betrayal, I kid you not. He followed my grandpa into his office and spilled the beans about me wanting to get my inheritance money. Can you believe it? I didn't care and was about to break up with him after he only offered me a cut of my grandpa's inheritance. As soon as my grandpa found out, he flipped out on me from his office and I knew I was screwed. My boyfriend said he'd help me with my scheme, but my grandpa looked at me like he didn't even recognize me. He had practically raised me, but now he was treating me like a stranger. So he cut me out of his will. I got down on my knees, begging and crying, but my grandpa kicked me out of his house, saying I never wanted to see my boyfriend's face again. He had this cocky smirk on his face, like he knew exactly what he was doing. That bastard had set me up and I couldn't believe he would hit out at me like that. I couldn't even ask him what I did wrong because we were in front of my grandfather. My boyfriend really went all out, trying to sabotage me. I needed money for my grandfather to start fresh on my own. I didn't want to be stuck following my grandfather's strict rules about marriage and finding a man. This was the last straw. The reason I did all this in the first place was cause I had this elaborate plan, but my boyfriend messed it all up. He got all pissed off just cause I danced with some other dude at the club, even though there was no reason for him to be trippin'. I was beyond pissed, like kicked out of my grandpa's apartment pissed. And then I got fired from my job cause I was always riding on my grandpa's coattails, and now he's cut me off. I don't know what to do now, and I can't figure out why my boyfriend would act like this. He did this to me. I tried to reach out to ask him what I did wrong and why he believed rumors. I even messaged our mutual friends, but he blocked them. I'm really struggling to understand why this happened. I'm also pissed off because now I have to start over and he won't talk to me. Update for you guys, it's been a month and I've been reading the supportive comments on this post. Man, my ex really screwed me over. Long story short, he believed some rumors he heard about me cheating on him and kicked me out. Then he went and told my grandpa some BS about me trying to scam him for money, so now I'm basically starting over from nothing. I managed to find a job, but it's been tough trying to get back on my feet. I got a spot in a studio apartment with a random person and I had to use my last bit of cash to get it because I couldn't keep crashing on train station floors. How the mighty have fallen. I remember when I always had money in my bank account, but those funds dried up quick. The real question is, have I run into my ex-boyfriend again since he left me hanging? Well, I did. That's what I wanted to update you guys on. And I just realized I didn't even mention how my relationship was with my now ex-partner and if we ever had any issues. Before I spill the tea on my past relationship, let me fill you in on the latest drama. So, I ran into my ex-boyfriend at Starbucks the other day. He had been avoiding me like the plague and even blocked me, but there he was, ordering a coffee at my workplace. I was so shook that I dropped his coffee, and we ended up causing a scene that got me kicked out and suspended for a week. I waited for him to finish his drink, then I confronted him and started yelling at him for being a total jerk. He totally messed up my life. He then said he knew I was seeing Frank on the sly and asked me to admit it or deny it. When I confronted him outside the house, I was shocked to hear what he thought of me. I told him he was just listening to gossip that had ruined my life. But he called me out on my BS and showed me a picture on his phone of me and Frank entering a hotel together, holding hands. That didn't really prove anything, but I told him it was just an innocent photo. Then he started making assumptions based on that. So, I was super close to crying when he showed me another pic of me and Frank smooching outside his place. I gotta come clean, guys. I cheated on my boyfriend with Frank. I know, it's messed up. Let me explain. I'm 24, met my ex in college 2 years ago. We were in the same major, so we studied together and he helped me out with school stuff. He was like my go-to guy for all things college. I thought me and Frank were gonna date, but I really just saw him as a friend who could help me out. We were chill and all, but I had a little crush on him. Then he graduated from school and my grandpa was not feeling our vibe. I don't know what Frank did to rub him the wrong way, but my grandpa straight up told me that if he caught us dating, I'd lose my inheritance. Turns out, I had no idea I even had an inheritance coming my way, but apparently it was contingent on me finding a partner and settling down to start a family. My grandpa was all about that traditional family life, even though he remarried after my grandma passed away. I won't get into all the details of my family drama, but I did something pretty bad. I found out about the inheritance my grandpa had set up for me and started scheming. I was sick of living under his strict rules, so I came up with a plan. I decided to get into a serious relationship for 2 years, then propose marriage to prove to my grandpa that I was ready to start a family. Once he handed over the estate to me, I was gonna ditch him and cut all ties. So, here's the deal, I had this plan that was totally dumb and selfish. Now I'm realizing that my life is a hot mess because of the dumb things I did. It's kinda embarrassing to spill all this on here, but I don't really have anyone to talk to about it. I saw some positive responses and thought maybe you guys would get where I'm coming from. I wanted to use Frank instead of my ex-boyfriend, but I didn't want to mess up our friendship. Unfortunately, my grandpa really didn't like Frank, and I had a huge crush on him. So, I ended up blaming my ex-boyfriend instead. Crazy, right? Let's see where this goes. Okay, so I was seeing this guy, right? And I was gonna make him propose to me, then I was gonna break up with him and chase after Frank, my true love. I mean, I really loved Frank, but we couldn't be together for some reasons. So, I came up with this plan. I started dating my ex-boyfriend again, he fell for it and we were good. I didn't really have strong feelings for him though, 'cause I knew what I was aiming for. I didn't tell him about my plan at first, but he found out eventually. Man, I came home wasted one night and I was so hammered that I couldn't even see straight. I told him that I was gonna use him to swipe my grandpa's inheritance and finally live life without his damn rules. Surprisingly, I managed to talk him into it even though he wasn't too keen at first. Luckily, I didn't spill the beans about my plan to use him and then ditch him later. I just told him we'd rush the proposal and lie to my grandpa about it. I don't even know what got into me to come up with such a shady scheme during our relationship. Okay, so I was starting to really like this guy. He was sweet and caring, always checking in on me to make sure I was okay. I was actually starting to think about where things could go with him, maybe even thinking about ditching my original plan. But then, out of nowhere, Frank came back into the picture. My grandpa basically made me break things off with him before, but now he's hitting me up wanting to hang out and catch up. I swear I wasn't planning on cheating on my ex, that was never my intention. So I met up with Frank, we talked, laughed, caught up, and then I left. But then I found myself going back to see him more and more, and before I knew it, I was totally hooked. I snuck out of the house when my ex was there, pretending to go see a friend but really going to see Frank. It was so wrong and the worst thing I've ever done. Frank was my first love before college, and he was starting to show signs of loving me again. I felt like a dumb girl with a crush. I know, I had a boyfriend and I wasn't thinking straight. I started sleeping with him after the third time. It's been a while since we last talked, but I was always careful around my ex-boyfriend. I made sure to watch my back and have an excuse ready. Then, one of my friends started spreading rumors that I was hooking up with Frank. I had no clue they were saying this behind my back. They were partly responsible for my issues, on top of my crush on Frank. I was focused on getting my inheritance, so I didn't want to do anything that could cause drama. I didn't even tell Frank I had a boyfriend at the time. So, after the party, I found out that I messed everything up because I was so drunk that I started grinding on Frank in front of my boyfriend. I mean, I did ask my ex to dance with me, but he said no. I think he already knew I was cheating on him. Now I'm feeling so embarrassed for my shady behavior and facing the consequences. My whole plan is ruined. Frank left me when he found out I had a boyfriend and was cheating on him. He was like, bye. I asked my ex-boyfriend how he found out I was cheating, and he said he followed me to the other guy's house after I lied about seeing a friend. He was mad that I always wanted to hang out with my friends and wanted to see what was so great about this other guy. When he found out who the friend was, he didn't even bother asking how he got the photo evidence of me cheating. But I couldn't ask him because he had already left, saying he couldn't stand to see my face anymore. So for the past month, I've been seriously thinking about ending it all because of the mess I made. My grandpa ain't even gonna help me out with anything. Finding a job is like pulling teeth, and I'm running out of cash. I even had to sell some of my stuff just to get by. It's getting tougher by the day. I need some advice on how to get my grandpa to forgive me. I'm feeling like absolute garbage. Thanks for listening to my rant today. If you like this, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more. Hey, if you've got a juicy story to spill about yourself or someone else, shoot me an email. Stay safe.